Biya has won the election in Cameroon. The 92-year-old, who is the world's oldest president, securing a record eighth term in office. Now, according to the Constitutional Council, Biya won over 53%.
Cameroon was holding its breath. People in the country knew who they voted for, and it was never Biya, who has been ruling for the past 43 years. However, they were uncertain about the election results. That's because in nearly all elections, Biya won despite people not voting for him. The main rival, Chiroma, had earlier declared his victory and asked Biya to respect it. But now it has been officially declared by Cameroon's authorities that Biya has won the election, and this has led to violent clashes, paving the way for a possible coup. Even Chiroma said he is prepared for all possible situations. So, what really happened? Why was Biya declared as the winner despite losing? And where is all this heading? In this video, let's find out. It began with the familiar theater of certainty, a solemn announcement, a percentage that felt carved in stone, and the ritual congratulations from those who never stand in line for bread or buses. The proclamation carried numbers, but the streets carried memories. People remembered queues outside polling stations, the long, tense hours when rumors replaced updates, and the sinking feeling that accompanies a silence stretched just long enough for doubt to congeal into certainty. When the victor's name was read, the country didn't gasp. It clenched. Suddenly, city arteries tightened. Markets shut early, office workers rushed home, and parents yanked their children indoors before the sunset. The air had that brittle quality that comes when the public senses that the page has not turned so much as curled back on itself. Small clusters of people formed, then swelled. A chant here, a whistle there, a drumbeat that sounded less like celebration and more like a heartbeat preparing a body for a sprint. Soon the chant was a march, the march of face-off, and the face-off something darker. Sirens, tear gas, the thud of boots, the pop of rubber bullets, or something sharper. The ritual ended where it always ends when legitimacy is contested, in the push and pull between a state guarding the gate and a public insisting the gate is theirs. This is the moment where narratives harden. One side calls it order, the other calls it oppression. One side calls it confirmation, the other calls it theft. Yet beneath the noise, there's a logic. People don't risk lungs and limbs for sport. They do it because they believe the ballot was treated like a suggestion. That belief, right or wrong, carries power. And power, when it feels threatened, reaches for tools that silence rather than persuade. The more those tools appear, the more the public believes its suspicion was correct. It's not just about who announced the number. It's about how quickly batons appeared to protect it. But to understand why this result detonated so fiercely, map the path that got Cameroon here. Start with the arithmetic of incumbency. 4 decades of a single figure at the apex of state, a governing party interwoven with institutions, and laws iterated until they more closely resemble locks than rules. Add to that the ritual choreography of election season, rallies hyper-managed for cameras, opposition permits challenged or delayed, and a media ecosystem where airtime is a commodity that travels with power. By the time ballots are printed, the field is not level. It's landscaped. But even landscaped fields can surprise you when the weather changes. This cycle's weather brought unusual electricity, a challenger who spoke with a confidence that cut across the usual urban-rural and language fault lines, and a public mood sharpened by years of hardship and fatigue. The opposition's early declaration of victory didn't just test the state, it tested the loyalty of the undecided and the wavering. Then there is the matter of timing. In any contest where the official result is delayed to the edge of the legal window, suspicion grows in the gaps. Every hour becomes a rumor, and every rumor a reason to mobilize. By the time the figure is read, 1,000 small narratives have already become one sweeping story that they are preparing the ending Cameroonians have seen before. The announcement doesn't close the book. It starts a sequel no one asked for. And yet, the machinery of the state is not simply numbers and uniforms. It is also the careful stagecraft of inevitability. The quickest way to transform a disputed outcome into a durable one is to behave as if the dispute itself is a misdemeanor. Hold regular briefings, invoke the Constitution. Make a show of business-as-usual decisions, cabinet meetings, policy rollouts, public appearances. This is incumbency's home turf, turning shock into shrug. The street, sensing this, escalates. The state, sensing escalation, hardens. And now the country sits on a hinge. You should know that coup is a word people whisper before they shout. It rides in on the back of unanswered questions. How unified is the security apparatus? Which barracks are restless? Which generals are suddenly quiet? But real coups are rare, not because ambition is scarce, but because the calculus is brutal. You need unity at the top, obedience below, a story that justifies intervention, and a public mood that either cheers or stands aside. Miss any ingredient and the batter falls flat, and people die. So what are we really seeing? Not tanks at dawn. Not yet. We are seeing a stress test of the entire system. Mass demonstrations probe the reflexes of the police. Do they disperse, surround, or detain? Do they escalate quickly, or do they absorb the wave and let it pass? These signals tell elites whether the status quo is secure or brittle. Meanwhile, the opposition tests its own networks. Can it coordinate without being decapitated? Can it keep discipline when anger wants to sprint? Can it turn a grievance into a plan? If the protests stay broad, peaceful, and persistent, pressure migrates upward. That's when coup should be translated more accurately as elite rupture. It often doesn't look like a colonel at a microphone. It looks like palace choreography, appointments shuffled, portfolios traded, a hint of transition draped in legal language. Sometimes it comes dressed as a compromise, a national unity government, an audit, a power-sharing posture. But sometimes it comes dressed as attrition, arrests that decapitate momentum, fatigue that dissolves the street, and small concessions that buy quiet without buying trust. The path that opens depends on whether two lines cross. One is the public's stamina. The other is the regime's tolerance for reputational blood loss. If those lines intersect in the wrong quadrant, like high stamina and low tolerance, then something gives. If they never meet, like low stamina and high tolerance, the result is drift. A long winter of sullen stability where nothing moves but the cost of living. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. What's happening now in Cameroon feels different. Every contested election feels like déjà vu until it doesn't. This one carries three differences that the public senses intuitively. First, the succession clock is louder than before. Leadership longevity creates its own gravitational pull. It organizes loyalty, patronage, and fear. But time is undefeated. A system built around one figure eventually faces a question it cannot litigate away. What comes after? The longer that question is ignored, the louder it echoes in every neighborhood, every office, every barracks. Elections then become referendums, not on manifestos, but on mortality. Second, the conflict map has broadened the lens through which people view ballots. Years of tension and violence in parts of the country, particularly the English-speaking regions, rewired the national mind. For many, ballots that don't resolve structural grievances feel like paperwork stamped on top of pain. That translates into skepticism by default. An election that doesn't address the architecture of alienation can produce numbers without producing consent. Third, the information battlefield has changed. Even where connectivity is fragile, citizens know how to document, mirror, and distribute. Neighborhoods become newsrooms. Churches and campuses morph into coordination hubs. Attempts to control narratives by cutting signals or stage managing briefings now often boomerang. Silence is interpreted as guilt, suppression as confession. A generation raised on delay tactics and denials no longer grades statements, it grades evidence. And now, there is evidence of possible rigging in the election. But interestingly, when people say rigging, they imagine stuffed boxes and fake tallies. That still happens in places, but modern manipulation prefers the front end and the back end to the middle. Front end means shaping the terrain before the first vote, loading the referee's bench, rationing airtime, nudging administrative levers so that some rallies are unsafe while others are festive. It means training the public to expect trouble so that, when trouble arrives, they are already too tired to contest it. Back end means what happens once the ballots are cast, but before the number is read. Filters on which complaints get heard, which are ruled inadmissible, and which are kicked down the road. It means the choreography of legalism, when a technical truth, like a court deadline, a procedural clause, swallows a political truth. A result can be lawful and illegitimate at the same time. In such systems, the most efficient manipulation is often the most boring: paperwork. There's a third layer people forget: post-result pressure. Once the number drops, the task is to compress dissent faster than it can self-organize. Speed and spectacle matter. If the first 72 hours are dominated by images of arrests, tear gas, and sterile pressers, the system hopes momentum will slide from outrage to routine. It doesn't always work, but it often works enough. Now, there are 3 possible roads for Cameroon. First, there is a possibility of containment and drift. The state holds the line. Security forces remain cohesive. Protests are squeezed by logistics, fatigue, fear, and payday. The government rolls out gestures like salary pledges, infrastructure promises, and meetings with stakeholders. International voices urge calm without leverage. Months pass. The temperature drops but never cools. People adjust the way people always do when they can't afford not to. This is the road most traveled. The second road is a negotiated opening. Pressure accumulates in ways that can't be dismissed. Clergy, bar associations, business coalitions, and influential traditional leaders converge on the same sentence: we need an off-ramp. The state calculates that giving up a little is cheaper than betting the house. You see confidence measures: detainees released, rights of assembly honored, perhaps a limited audit or supervised review in select districts. Maybe even a grand gesture, an inclusive cabinet or a reform timetable. The risk? Cosmetic change. The hope? A real beginning. The third road is elite rearrangement, not a coup on television, a transition behind the curtains. Power brokers decide that the present configuration can't hold. Health, age, and image become the vocabulary of retreat. A successor is floated, a stability narrative is prepared, and legal instruments are found to sanctify what is essentially a political decision. This road keeps the architecture intact while swapping the face at the podium. It can buy time, and sometimes it can buy peace. Which road appears depends on 2 actors who don't speak in press conferences: the middle class with nothing to gain from chaos but nothing left to lose from drift, and the middle ranks of the security services whose patience is long until it isn't. When both move, the road bends. But there will be costs and consequences if nothing changes. The first casualty of contested power is human rights. Space narrows for protest, for journalism, for civil society. Each arrest sends 2 messages: to the detainee that we can reach you, and to the public that don't be next. Over time, a nation trimmed to fit its rulers begins to suffocate its talents. The brightest leave, the bravest get quiet. The second cost is the economy. Investors love stability, but they price in legitimacy. When the latter is missing, capital becomes skittish, credit more expensive, and projects slower. The burden lands on the usual shoulders: small businesses, informal traders, graduates scanning classifieds that read like eulogies. The third cost is that the government becomes incapable of providing the basic facilities that a state exists for. A government that exits an election with a contested mandate is a government that bargains from weakness on big, painful files. That means the structural issues like language, federalism, and regional equity don't get the oxygen they require. Kicking the can has a cost. Eventually, the can kicks back. Then, the social fabric is compromised. When people conclude that elections don't arbitrate power, they search for alternatives: street leverage, strikes, external patrons, and yes, men with medals. None of these fix the problem. All of them make the next election worse. Now, the task ahead is difficult for the opposition. It's easy to mobilize anger. It's hard to convert it into architecture. The opposition's most difficult job is strategic patience with operational discipline. That means three things: unified messaging, nonviolent rigor, and infrastructure of evidence. If the opposition can resist the seduction of spectacle and stay in the grind of procedure, it forces the state to argue on facts rather than fear. That's the terrain where legitimacy lives or dies. So, what really happened? Well, an old machine ran an old tactic and discovered that the country reading it had changed. Why was the incumbent declared the winner despite a public that does not recognize the result? Because in systems like this, the contest is shaped before the campaign begins and sealed after the ballots are cast. And where is this heading? Toward one of three roads: drift, opening, or rearrangement. None are inevitable, all are possible. There is, however, one constant. Power can police streets, manage headlines, and declare percentages. But it cannot decree belief. Legitimacy is not a number read from a lectern. It is a consent conferred by people who feel seen. Until that consent is earned and not extracted, every victory will taste like ash, and every proclamation will require more force to defend than the last. So the country holds its breath, not because it is weak, but because it understands the moment. Breath is what you take before you speak, and before you decide whether to keep walking, to turn back, or to draw a line. The rulers can choose which road they prefer. The people can choose whether any road without them is still a path. What do you think? Can Biya be forcibly removed from power because he himself is in no mood to do so? Isn't the saying right that if Biya contests from the grave, he will still win? In the comment section, share your thoughts on how the people and Chiroma unite against Biya and over a 4-decade-long regime. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on Black Africa, its history, rich arts and culture, and things the world should know about. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.